Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Dr. Stollard. This is BN 490 week three. BN 490 week three. Hope everyone's doing well. Couple things I want to kind of go over for this particular this week's session. I haven't finished grading the assignments for week two, but I'll definitely do that tonight. So make sure you look at those. I don't know if you can hear my kids or not in the back, but um, make sure you can. Make sure you look at the feedback that I've given you, because even though there are some things on the APA piece that some of y'all may have missed, that I did not count off for, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to count off for it, next assignment. So I just want to bring some of these things to your attention. Okay. So that's kind of like where we are at this particular point. Okay. So this week we're focusing on chapter 5 and chapter 6. Um, chapter 5 and chapter 6. So that's kind of a few things I want to kind of bring to your attention regarding chapter 5 and chapter 6. So chapter 5 is stage 2, a sampling design, and chapter 6 is data collection design, quality and research. So there's a few different things we're going to go over. The main thing for this particular week would be action research, right? But it's one of the things I kind of want to just bring to your attention. So make sure you read the entire two chapters, chapter 5 and chapter 6. Chapter 5 talks about qualitative data collection. I'm sorry, chapter 6 talks about qualitative data collection design, an individual interview versus a group interview, right? Interviewers as consultants. So make sure you kind of adhere to those and learn some of those things in that regard. The main reason is that this particular week, you're going to have two quizzes, one quiz for each chapter. So you'll have a typical chapter 5 online assignment, chapter 6 online assignment, but you're also going to have quizzes for each one. And the quizzes are timed, so you don't get all day to do them. You can choose any time between essentially tomorrow, Tuesday, right? Till Sunday to do the quiz, but you only have like 30 minutes to complete the quiz. That means that you should have read it and understood it. And so keep in mind that there's some instructions you want to have when it comes to particular quizzes. I'm gonna have two screens. That's why you see me kind of looking off to the side. You're gonna have attention. There's attention, the bacterial extension required. So you want to make sure that is installed on your browser as well. There's instructions how to do that. If you have any questions on that, make sure you reach out to the IT help desk, right? But it's my understanding that all students should actually have that information or have that attachment already installed. So make sure you have that attachment to your browser. So you, again, what you're going to do is you can start the quiz anytime this week after starting on Tuesday, but you only have 30 minutes. Once you hit start, then that's it. It's a quiz though. So that means you only need to have one browser open. You don't want to have your phone open. You don't want to have multiple browsers. You don't want to have Chrome and Firefox open, all those things, because if the system detects anything, it's just going to shut it off. It's going to assume that you are operating in academic or lack of academic integrity, like trying to cheat and so forth, right? And it's going to shut it off and just submit what you have. So the best thing to do is to just open up the quiz when you're ready, start the quiz, choose your answers, and then hit submit accordingly. All right. And if you study the chapter and so forth, you shouldn't have any problem with that. So there's that. Let me see. So again, two quizzes for that. The other part, we're going to spend a little bit of time on in this video. I'm not going to give you a whole lecture, but it is a focal point on chapter 6, and it is referred to as action in research. So it's referred to as action in research. Okay. So a couple things I want to kind of bring to your attention real quick. So action research, excuse me. It's just a type of research. Okay. This is still a 400 level class. So there are certain expectations that you know how to read, obviously how to write, how to conduct, do certain things. And one of those things being a college of business class is use APA, right? And so we introduced it a little bit last week, but the assumption is that this should not be the first time you're using APA. I've given you links to the APA site as well, so you can reference that. Make sure you are adhering to those guidelines, because some of you are still kind of doing shorthand that's not part of the APA requirement, or the APA format, and it's going to cause you in deduction of points. Maybe not so much on week 2, but by week 3 it will be. All right. So you have what's called action research. It's a type of research that focuses on improving real world problems by taking action, observing the results, reflecting on what worked and what could be improved. Um, it is commonly used in organizations and businesses to help improve processes, right? Services and then experiences. Okay, so again, it's called action research. So the definition I just gave you is a little bit different than the textbook, but you can use either one. Okay, we're going to go over this particular research packet with you. It's not extensive. This is still a 1 credit course. I'm not, but this is essentially a research strategy that you're kind of putting together, a research strategy. So I'm not asking you to actually conduct the research, but I'm asking you to kind of put together a plan, what it would look like under the action research guide as the vehicle. I hope that makes sense for you, right? So this assignment focuses on action research. It's a research method for understanding and improving, a business problem or situation in a business, not coming up with some type of um, financial plan or supply chain plan or operational function. That's not what this is about. This is about the research component of it, right? As relates to a specific business problem. Okay, so I hope that's particularly clear. Okay. And so essentially, the textbook talks about action research, the use of the restaurant. So we're going to use that context. You need to choose a restaurant, right? One real restaurant as your area restaurant of focus. You don't want to choose the same restaurant as your classmates. That means you have to proactively communicate with your class, right? If that means if 2 of you have, or more than one of you have the same restaurant, you're just going to be deduction of points for both of you. So you want to reach out to both parties, everyone involved, to make sure that no one is duplicating the same restaurant. The next thing you want to also do is choose, and research is not done in a bubble, right? So you want to get kind of in the habit of that. So those who start early, that's great. Those who don't want to start early, you're going to need to maybe plan to start early this week, or at least have a communication with your teammate, with your classmates, right? So this is an individual project. We just want to make sure that you're not actually adhering to, not, duplicating the same restaurant. All right. So next you're going to do is choose an area to improve, right? So you can select one specific area of restaurant to focus on, not the entire restaurant, just one particular area, all right, of research focus. So it could be like order accuracy. It could be the speed of turnover on tables, right? It could be the cleanliness during like peak hours, okay? It could be, complaints on customers. But if you're doing complaints on customers, what is that specific complaint? Okay. So you can pick one of these. You can pick up something else that you feel is more interesting, more to your liking. That's fine. But you're choosing one area to improve on, right? One area that restaurant wants to improve on. So in your sense, you are the research consultant. So this is you're kind of guiding this. Okay. Um, Again, you can choose a different aspect, a different perspective if you want to as well to focus on. But again, you cannot choose the same area to improve as your classmates, right? So that means you need to make sure that y'all are in serious communication. Let me see. So again, if one or one you choose the same restaurant, chain restaurant, or the chain area improvement, then that would be a problem. Okay. Um, All right, so the problem cannot be just based on um, your personal opinion or beliefs. So keep that in the back of your mind, or personal opinion or your feelings. Okay. Um, Instead, you kind of want to explain what information signals or would reasonably suggest that there is in fact a problem. So if a restaurant contacts you to need some help, right, and they're saying we have a problem, you would ask them, so how do you know this? So again, what kind of data would have to be collected? What kind of information would signal or articulate that there is an actual problem that needs to be worked on? Okay. And you want to identify some of these things. Um, Now, keep in mind, you're not actually having to conduct this actual research, right? You don't have to actually conduct the research, okay? So I'm not actually collect the data, but only to explain what type of evidence would justify identifying this type of problem, okay? All right, now if you read the textbook like you're supposed to, then this won't be difficult at all. If you just try to AI it or just guess the answer, you're going to end up failing the assignment. That's not good either, okay? A couple things with this assignment. You're gonna have a small little write-up one-page write-up, and then you're going to do a video recording. All right. So your video recording, you're going to identify the problem. You're going to in your video, you're going to explain the name of the restaurant. And I'm not going to go over every single aspect of it. It's all in Canvas. But then you're going to come up with a plan of action, right? You need to come up with explain what action you would take to address the problem, whatever the problem you're focusing on, right? Um, and how long would this action be implemented and why? What's one specific action would you try to improve this issue? What types of data would you collect to evaluate where the action has worked? And again, you want to identify at least 4 types of meaningful data. Now, this next part, right, what we call take the action and observe, right? So even though you're not actually implementing the action plan, this is where you're kind of putting together your research strategy, how the action would be carried out in practice. Again, how the action would be carried out in practice, right? And who would be involved in addition to yourself, right? And what would you be paying attention to while observing, these actions that are taking place, right? And what changes or patterns would you expect would you be expecting to monitor or take a look at? So again, you're essentially putting together a research strategy. You're not reporting on actual results because there are no completed results, right? You're just putting together a strategy so that it's super, super clear on what needs to be happen when you're participating in action research. Okay. Let me see. Another thing I want to kind of mention is because research outcomes are never known in advance for part 3 and part 4, right? You must use we call conditional language. So examples like could, might, would to describe what could happen, right? Or what might happen. Okay. I hope that part makes sense to you. Okay. So again, think of it like this. Here's what could happen, right? Or here's what I would do and what I would look for in conducting this research. Those are the type of terms you want to use, type of phrases you want to use, right? Um, Another part of that, think of it like, if XYZ happens, that would suggest this, right? One possible outcome could be, right, this. If the data did not change, that might indicate like what, right? So I hope that part is clear for you. Again, you're not conducting actual research. You're just putting a strategy together in place, and then you want to articulate what could happen, what could the results be, or what could not, or what may not happen, right? But it's got to make sense. It's got to make viable. And so, but you're using action research only, the action research cycle only to kind of guide this whole prospect. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can definitely let me know. Again, your deliverables, a one-page write-up summary, APA cover page, a reference, APA reference. You should have at least 2 references. Obviously, at least one of them should be the actual restaurant itself. You may pull some additional information as well from some other source, but should have at least 2 references that listed in your reference page. I gave you a link to what the reference page should look like. So you want to make sure that you use that, adhere to those guidelines. And that's pretty much it. Again, this is still a 400 level course. So there are certain things that are expected of you, that you know how to think critically and conditionally, and able to kind of communicate logically what's going on. So make sure you do your own work. This is not an AI assignment. This will get you in trouble if you just end up AIing it and so forth. Hope that makes sense. Again, your video needs to be at least 5 minutes long. Good luck to all of you, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.